Blood trickled down the side of Rose Blackburn's face as she stared defiantly at her captors through the dim light of the abandoned mining shack. Her wrists were raw from the coarse rope that bound them behind her back, but her spirit remained unbroken. 3 days she'd been held in this hellhole, waiting for a ransom that might never come. Arizona Territory, 1878. The land was as unforgiving as the men who sought to tame it. Rose had never intended to become entangled in the violent feuds that plagued these parts. But fate had other plans when the stagecoach she was traveling on was ambushed outside of Willow Creek. "Your daddy's got till sundown tomorrow, Miss Blackburn," drawled Silas Jenkins, the leader of the outlaw gang. His face was pockmarked, eyes cold as winter ice. "Then we start sending him pieces of his precious daughter." Rose swallowed hard but kept her gaze steady. "My father will pay. He's a man of his word." Jenkins laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the wooden walls. $10,000 is a mighty steep price, even for the richest cattle baron in the territory. The door to the shack swung open, letting in a shaft of harsh sunlight that momentarily blinded Rose. A new figure stood silhouetted against the glare. "Boss," called one of the younger gang members. "Rider coming, fast," Jenkins cursed. "Nobody knows we're here." He grabbed his rifle and headed for the door. "Watch her. Shoot if she tries anything." Alone with her guard, a bearded man called Hank, Rose worked again at the ropes binding her wrists. The hemp bit into her skin, but she felt the slightest give that hadn't been there before. 3 days of subtle, persistent work was finally paying off outside, voices raised in anger. Then came the unmistakable sound of gunfire. Hank jumped to his feet, peering through a crack in the wooden slats. "What the hell?" More shots rang out, followed by screams. Hank cursed and headed for the door, torn between his duty to guard the prisoner and the desire to help his comrades. The moment the door closed behind him, Rose redoubled her efforts, ignoring the pain as the ropes scraped her wrists bloody. She had to get free, had to escape while the gang was distracted. The sounds of battle continued outside, more shots, shouting, the thunder of hooves. Then silence fell, sudden and complete. Rose froze, her heart hammering against her ribs. Footsteps approached the shack, slow and measured. The door swung open. A man stood there, tall and broad-shouldered, silhouetted against the fading daylight. Blood stained his shirt and his hat was gone, revealing tousled dark hair. He stepped into the shack and Rose saw a face weathered by sun and hardship, with eyes the color of a storm-dark sky. "Miss Blackburn." His voice was deep, gravelly. "Who are you?" Rose demanded, still working at her bonds. "Name's Adam Lawson." He holstered his revolver and moved toward her. "Your father sent me." Rose's hope soared, then plummeted as she took in the spreading bloodstain on his side. "You're hurt. Nothing that won't keep." Adam knelt behind her, his breath warm against her neck as he examined her bindings. They did a number on these ropes. His knife made quick work of her bonds. As the ropes fell away, Rose couldn't suppress a gasp of pain as blood rushed back into her numb hands. "Can you walk?" Adam asked, helping her to her feet. Rose nodded, rubbing her wrists. "The others won't be bothering anyone again." His expression was grim. "Come on, we need to move before more show up." Outside, the bodies of Jenkins and his men lay scattered around the clearing. Rose averted her eyes, feeling sick despite herself. These men had kidnapped her, threatened her life, yet seeing them dead brought her no satisfaction. Adam led her to where 2 horses waited, his own sturdy bay and a dappled mare that Rose recognized as belonging to Jenkins. "We can't stay here," Adam said, helping her mount the mare. "Jenkins has friends in these parts. Once they find out what happened, they'll come looking. My father sent me to bring you home." Adam swung into his saddle, wincing at the movement. That's what I aim to do. As they rode away from the shack, Rose studied her rescuer. Blood had soaked through his shirt completely now, yet he sat straight in the saddle, his jaw set in determination. "You need a doctor," she said. Adam shook his head. "No time. We need to put distance between us and here. I know a place we can hole up till morning." The sun was setting as they rode, painting the desert landscape in shades of gold and crimson. Rose had never seen such beauty and such harshness coexist. Like the man beside her, there was something both dangerous and compelling about Adam Lawson. "How do you know my father?" she asked as they navigated through a narrow canyon. "Worked for him years back, left to try my luck in the silver mines." He offered no more explanation. They rode in silence after that, the only sounds the steady rhythm of hooves and the occasional call of a night bird. Rose felt exhaustion creeping through her bones. 3 days of captivity, fear, and uncertainty were taking their toll. "Almost there," Adam said as they approached a small cabin nestled against the red rock face of a mesa. "Old line shack. Used it when I was running cattle through these parts." The cabin was small but solidly built. Adam dismounted stiffly, then helped Rose down from her horse. His hand lingered on her waist a moment longer than necessary, and something electric passed between them. Inside, the cabin was dusty but intact. A small stone fireplace dominated one wall, a narrow cot stood against another, and a rough-hewn table with 2 chairs completed the sparse furnishings. "It's not much," Adam said, lighting a lantern that hung from a ceiling beam. "It's perfect," Rose replied, meaning it. After 3 days in that filthy shack, the cabin seemed like a palace. Adam nodded, then suddenly staggered, catching himself against the table. Rose was at his side instantly, steadying him. "You've lost too much blood," she said, guiding him to one of the chairs. "Let me look at that wound." He didn't protest as she helped him remove his vest and shirt. The bullet had torn through his side, leaving an ugly furrow of torn flesh. It wasn't deep enough to have hit anything vital, but the bleeding was steady. "There's a medical kit in my saddlebag," Adam said through gritted teeth. Rose fetched it, then set water to boil on the small stove. Her hands trembled slightly as she cleaned the wound, but her touch was gentle. Adam watched her, his expression unreadable. "You've done this before," he observed. Rose nodded, concentrating on her task. "My father believes women should be capable. He taught me basic medicine after my mother died. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago." Rose applied a poultice of herbs she found in the medical kit, then wrapped clean bandages around Adam's torso. "This should help, but you've lost a lot of blood. You need rest." Adam caught her hand as she finished tying off the bandage. His fingers were calloused but warm against her skin. "Thank you." Something in his voice made Rose look up, meeting his gaze. The intensity she saw there made her breath catch. For a moment neither moved, then Adam released her hand and stood carefully. "You take the cot, I'll keep watch. You're in no condition, I've had worse." His tone brooked no argument. "Get some rest, Miss Blackburn. Tomorrow will be a long day." Despite her exhaustion, Rose found sleep elusive. She lay on the narrow cot, listening to Adam moving about the cabin, securing doors and windows. Eventually, he settled into one of the chairs, his revolver within easy reach. "Why did you come for me?" she asked into the darkness. "My father must have men he could have sent." There was a long silence, and Rose thought he might not answer. "I owed him," Adam finally said, his voice low. "Your father gave me a chance when no one else would. A job, respect. When I heard what happened to you, I couldn't stand by. So you risked your life to repay a debt." Another silence. "Get some sleep, Miss Blackburn." Rose closed her eyes, but questions continued to swirl in her mind. Who was this man who had walked into a nest of killers to save her? What was the real story between him and her father? And why did her heart beat faster whenever their eyes met outside? An owl called into the night. Inside the cabin, two strangers bound by circumstance listened to each other's breathing and wondered what the dawn would bring. Morning came with golden light filtering through the cabin's single window. Rose woke to find Adam already up, despite his injury. He'd made coffee and was studying a tattered map spread on the table. "How are you feeling?" she asked, joining him. "I'll live." Adam folded the map and handed her a tin cup of coffee. "We need to move soon. It's still 2 days' ride to your father's ranch. And Jenkins' friends. They'll be looking for us." His expression was grim. "We'll take the long way around, through Rattlesnake Pass." Rose knew the pass by reputation, a treacherous route through the mountains that few attempted. "Is that safe?" "Safer than the main trails where Jenkins' gang will be watching." Adam checked his revolver, then tucked it into his holster. "Can you shoot?" The question surprised her. "Yes, my father insisted." Adam nodded approvingly. He retrieved a second revolver from his saddlebag and handed it to her. "Just in case." The weight of the gun was both foreign and familiar in Rose's hand. She'd practiced target shooting with her father, but had never fired a weapon in self-defense. She hoped she wouldn't need to now. They set out as the sun cleared the eastern horizon. Adam rode slightly ahead, alert for any sign of danger. Rose studied his back, the way he sat straight in the saddle despite his injury. There was something compelling about his quiet strength. "Tell me about yourself," she said as they rode side by side through a narrow valley. "Where are you from?" Adam was silent for so long Rose thought he would ignore the question. Finally, he spoke, his gaze fixed on the trail ahead. "Missouri originally. My family had a small farm, lost it during the war. After that, I drifted west, worked as a ranch hand, tried my luck in the mines." He shrugged. "Nothing much to tell. And now I'm taking you home." His tone suggested the subject was closed. They rode in silence for a time, the rhythmic clop of hooves and the occasional cry of a hawk the only sounds. The landscape was harsh but beautiful, red rock formations, sparse juniper trees, and in the distance, the purple shadows of mountains. Around midday, they stopped to rest the horses near a small spring. Rose gratefully slid from the saddle, her muscles protesting the long hours of riding. Adam dismounted more carefully, one hand pressed to his wounded side. "Let me check your bandages," Rose said. Adam hesitated, then nodded. He sat on a sun-warmed rock while Rose unwrapped the bandage. The wound looked angry and red, but there was no sign of serious infection. "It's healing," she said, applying fresh herbs from the medical kit. "But you need to be careful, no heroics." Adam's mouth quirked in what might have been a smile. "Yes, madam." As Rose worked, she was acutely aware of his proximity, the steady rise and fall of his chest, the faint scent of leather and sage that clung to him. Her fingers brushed against his skin and she felt him tense slightly. "Sorry," she murmured. "Did I hurt you?" "No." His voice was rough. Their eyes met, and something passed between them, a current of awareness that had nothing to do with patient and caregiver. The moment was broken by the distant sound of a gunshot. Both froze, listening intently. "Hunters, maybe," Rose suggested hopefully. Adam shook his head, already on his feet. "Too close to the trail. We need to move." They mounted quickly, leaving the spring behind. Adam led them into rougher terrain where rocky outcroppings provided cover. They rode hard for an hour, then paused in the shadow of a tall mesa to let the horses rest. "You think it's Jenkins' men?" Rose asked. "Can't be sure." Adam's expression was tense as he scanned their back trail. "But we can't take chances." They continued on more cautiously, Adam frequently stopping to listen and study the landscape. The sun was low in the western sky when they reached the entrance to Rattlesnake, pass a narrow defile between towering red rock walls. "We'll camp here tonight," Adam decided, gesturing to a small clearing sheltered by junipers. "The pass is too dangerous to navigate in fading light." They made a cold camp, not risking a fire that might be seen. Adam shared jerky and hardtack from his provisions, and they drank sparingly from their canteens. As darkness fell, the desert grew cold. Rose wrapped her shawl tighter around her shoulders, trying not to shiver. "Here." Adam offered his coat. When she hesitated, he added, "Take it, I'm used to the cold." The coat carried his warmth and scent. Rose pulled it around herself gratefully. "Thank you." They sat side by side, backs against a boulder, watching stars appear in the vast desert sky. Rose had never seen so many stars, so bright against the blackness. "It's beautiful," she said softly. Adam nodded. "That's why I stayed out west. Sky like this makes a man feel small, but part of something bigger too." It was the most personal thing he'd said since rescuing her. Rose glanced at his profile, strong and stark in the starlight. "Why did you really come for me?" she asked quietly. "The truth this time." Adam was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was low. "Your father saved my life once, not just by giving me work. There was trouble, a man killed in a bar fight. I was blamed. Henry Blackburn stood up for me when no one else would, proved I was innocent." "I didn't know," Rose said. "It's not something he talks about." Adam turned to look at her, his eyes serious in the darkness. "When I heard you'd been taken, I knew what I had to do, no matter the cost." The quiet intensity of his words stirred something deep within Rose. This man had walked into danger, taken a bullet, all to save her, to repay a debt to her father, yes, but there seemed to be more to it than that. "Thank you," she whispered, "for coming for me." Their faces were close in the darkness. Rose could feel the warmth of his breath, see the glint of starlight in his eyes. For a heartbeat, she thought he might lean closer, but instead he drew back slightly. "You should try to sleep," he said, his voice gruff. "I'll take first watch." Rose wanted to protest, to continue their conversation, but exhaustion was pulling at her. She settled onto her bedroll, using Adam's coat as a blanket. "Wake me for the second watch," she insisted. "You need rest too." Adam nodded, though Rose suspected he had no intention of waking her. As she drifted towards sleep, she heard him moving quietly around their small camp, checking the horses, securing their perimeter. In her last moments of consciousness, Rose realized something startling. She felt safe with this quiet, dangerous man. Safer than she had any right to feel in the wilderness with unknown enemies on their trail. She slept and dreamed of storm-gray eyes watching over her. Rose woke to the first light of dawn and the realization that Adam had indeed let her sleep through the night. He sat where she had left him, revolver across his knee, his gaze scanning the rocky terrain around them. "You were supposed to wake me," she said, sitting up. "You needed the rest more than I did." Adam stood, stretching carefully. His movements were stiffer this morning, his face drawn with fatigue. Rose frowned. "And you needed to heal. Let me check your wound." To her surprise, Adam acquiesced without argument. The wound looked better than she expected, though the skin around it was hot to the touch. "Does it hurt?" she asked, applying a fresh poultice. "Only when I breathe," he replied with a wry twist of his lips. Rose couldn't help but smile. "A joke? I was beginning to think you didn't know how." Something flickered in Adam's eyes, amusement perhaps, or something warmer. "Don't tell anyone. I have a reputation to maintain." This unexpected glimpse of humor made Rose's heart do a strange little flip in her chest. As she finished rebandaging his wound, her fingers lingered on his skin a moment longer than necessary. They broke camp quickly, eating a hasty breakfast before mounting up. The entrance to Rattlesnake Pass loomed before them, a narrow cut between towering red rock walls. "Stay close," Adam advised as they entered the pass. The trail gets tricky in places. The pass lived up to its reputation. The trail wound between sheer cliff faces, sometimes so narrow their stirrups nearly scraped the rock walls. In other places, it climbed steeply over loose scree, where a misstep could send horse and rider tumbling. Despite the danger, or perhaps because of it, Rose found herself exhilarated by the wild beauty around them. Sunlight painted the red rock in brilliant hues, and far above, an eagle soared on thermal currents. "It's magnificent," she breathed as they paused to rest the horses at a wider section of the trail. Adam nodded, his expression softening as he looked at her flushed face and bright eyes. "Not many women would think so after what you've been through. Perhaps I'm not like many women." "No," he agreed quietly, "you're not." Something in his tone made Rose's cheeks warm. She turned away, pretending to adjust her saddle. They continued through the pass, the trail gradually widening as they descended toward the valley beyond. Rose began to feel hopeful. Perhaps they had truly escaped Jenkins' men. Perhaps they would reach her father's ranch without further incident. The gunshot shattered that hope. The bullet kicked up dust just ahead of Adam's horse. The bay reared, nearly unseating him. Adam controlled the animal with one hand, drawing his revolver with the other. "Ride," he shouted to Rose. "Get to the valley." More shots rang out, echoing off the canyon walls. Rose couldn't tell where they were coming from or how many shooters there were. Her mare danced nervously beneath her. "I'm not leaving you," she called back, drawing the revolver Adam had given her. Adam cursed, then spurred his horse forward, grabbing the reins of Rose's mare. They galloped down the trail as bullets whined around them. They rounded a bend in the trail and Adam suddenly pulled up short. Ahead, 3 mounted men blocked their path, rifles aimed at them. "That's far enough, Lawson," called the leader, a lean man with a scar running down one cheek. "Jenkins was my brother. You've got a debt to pay." Adam pushed Rose behind him, his body shielding hers. "Let the woman go, Garrett. She has nothing to do with this." Garrett Jenkins laughed harshly. "She has everything to do with it, $10,000 to be exact." Behind them, more riders appeared, closing the trap. They were surrounded. "What now?" Rose whispered, her heart hammering. Adam's expression was grim. "When I make my move, you ride hard for the valley. Don't look back. I told you I'm not leaving you." "Damn it." Rose, before he could finish, Garrett Jenkins raised his rifle. "Enough talking. Throw down your weapons." Time seemed to slow. Rose saw Adam's hand tighten on his revolver, saw Jenkins' finger move toward the trigger. In that moment, she made her decision. Raising her own revolver, Rose fired. The shot caught Jenkins by surprise, striking his shoulder. He yelled in pain, his rifle discharging harmlessly into the air. It was the distraction Adam needed. His first shot took down the man to Jenkins' right. His second caught another outlaw in the chest. Rose fired again, forcing the third man to dive from his saddle for cover. "Go!" Adam shouted, spurring his horse toward the remaining outlaws behind them. This time Rose obeyed, urging her mare forward. She heard more gunfire behind her but didn't look back. The trail descended steeply now, switchbacking down toward the valley floor. Behind her, hoofbeats thundered. Rose risked a glance over her shoulder, expecting to see pursuers. Instead, she saw Adam, riding hard to catch up, blood streaming fresh from his side. "Keep going," he called. They raced down the last stretch of trail and burst into the open valley. Only then did Rose pull her mare to a halt, turning to wait for Adam. He reined in beside her, his face pale beneath his tan. "Told you to keep riding." "And I decided not to," Rose replied. "Are they following?" Adam shook his head. "Two dead. The rest won't be quick to follow after the reception they got." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Where did you learn to shoot like that?" "I told you my father insisted." Rose reached out to touch his bloodied shirt. "You're bleeding again. It'll keep." Adam scanned the valley. "We need to find cover. They'll be coming once they regroup." They rode at a steady pace across the valley floor, heading for a line of cottonwoods that marked a stream. The trees would provide cover, and the water would be welcome after their dusty ride. The sun was high overhead when they reached the cottonwoods. A clear stream ran between grassy banks, an oasis in the desert landscape. They dismounted in the shade, the horses eagerly lowering their heads to drink. Rose helped Adam sit with his back against a tree trunk, then carefully peeled away his blood-soaked shirt. The wound had reopened, bleeding freely. "This needs proper attention," she said, pressing a clean cloth against it to stem the flow. "Do what you can," Adam replied, his voice tight with pain. "We can't stay long." Rose worked quickly, cleaning the wound and applying the last of their medicinal herbs. As she wrapped fresh bandages around his torso, she couldn't help noticing the other scars that marked his body, evidence of a hard life lived on the frontier. "How much further to my father's ranch?" she asked. "Another day's ride if we push hard." Adam's breathing was shallow, his skin hot to the touch. Rose frowned. "You're running a fever. It'll pass." "Adam." She caught his gaze, holding it firmly. "You've lost too much blood. You need rest." For a moment she thought he would argue, then his shoulders slumped slightly. "A few hours." No more. It was a small victory. Rose finished tending his wound, then fetched water from the stream. They shared the last of the jerky and hardtack, eating in companionable silence. "That was brave, what you did back there," Adam said after a while. "Foolish, but brave." Rose met his gaze steadily. "I wasn't going to let you sacrifice yourself for me. It's my job to get you home safe." "Is that all it is? A job?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. Adam looked away, his expression unreadable. "Get some rest, I'll keep watch." Rose wanted to press him, to understand the complex man who had risked everything to save her, but exhaustion was catching up with her again. She settled on the grass nearby, using her saddle as a pillow. "Wake me in 2 hours," she insisted. "And that's an order, Mr. Lawson." A faint smile touched his lips. "Yes, madam." To her surprise, Adam did wake her after a few hours. The sun was lowering toward the western horizon, casting long shadows beneath the cottonwoods. "We should move," he said, already on his feet. Though still pale, he seemed steadier. "Cover more ground before nightfall." They rode west, following the stream for a time before turning south toward the distant mountains that marked the border of Blackburn Range. Adam set a moderate pace, mindful of the horse's stamina and his own condition. As twilight deepened around them, Rose found herself studying her companion. In the fading light, his profile was strong and stark against the darkening sky. Despite his injury and the danger that still pursued them, he radiated a quiet competence that she found deeply reassuring. "What will you do?" she asked suddenly. "After you take me home." Adam glanced at her, then back at the trail ahead. "Haven't thought that far. Will you stay? At the ranch, I mean." Rose wasn't sure why the answer mattered so much to her. "Your father might have a place for me." Adam's tone was non-committal. "Or I might head north. Here there's good land in Montana territory." The thought of him leaving brought a strange hollowness to Rose's chest. In just a few days, this man had become important to her in ways she couldn't fully explain. They made camp as darkness fell, finding shelter in a small box canyon. This time, Adam allowed a small fire, judging they were far enough from pursuit to risk it. The flames cast flickering shadows over their faces as they sat side by side, sharing the last of their provisions. The night was cold, stars brilliant in the clear desert sky. "Tell me about your life," Adam said unexpectedly, Before the kidnapping, Rose wrapped her arms around her knees, gazing into the fire. I was at school in Boston. My father sent me east for my education. She smiled faintly. I was returning home for the summer when the stagecoach was attacked. You prefer the East, the cities? She considered the question. There are things I enjoy, the theaters, museums, libraries, but this. She gestured to the vast starry sky above them. This is home, I've missed it. Adam nodded, understanding in his eyes. Hard to forget the West once it's in your blood. What about you? Rose asked. Do you ever think of settling in one place? Used to dream of my own ranch. A shadow crossed his face. Seems less likely now because. Adam poked at the fire with a stick, sending sparks spiraling upward. Man needs more than land and cattle to build a life. What else does he need? Rose asked softly. Their eyes met across the flames. Something unspoken passed between them, a current of awareness that made Rose's breath catch. Adam looked away first. Should get some sleep. I'll take first watch. This time, Rose didn't argue. She settled onto her bedroll, watching as Adam moved to sit with his back against a boulder, revolver across his knee. Adam, she said quietly. He turned, his face half in shadow. Yes. Thank you for everything. He nodded once, then turned his gaze back to the darkness beyond their camp. Rose closed her eyes, feeling a strange mixture of emotions she couldn't quite name. Gratitude, certainly. Admiration for his courage and determination. But there was something else too, something that made her heart beat faster when their eyes met, something that felt dangerously like falling in love. Dawn broke clear and cool over the desert landscape. Rose woke to find Adam already up, checking the horses. He looked better this morning, though still too pale beneath his tan. How do you feel? She asked, joining him. Well enough to ride. He handed her a canteen. We'll reach your father's ranch by nightfall if we push hard. They set out as the sun cleared the eastern horizon, riding south toward the mountains. The terrain grew gradually more familiar to Rose. These were Blackburn grazing lands. Soon, they would cross onto her father's ranch proper. Around midday, they paused to rest in the shade of a rocky overhang. Adam studied the landscape with narrowed eyes. Something wrong? Rose asked. Not sure, he frowned. Been watching our back trail, thought I saw dust earlier. Rose felt a chill despite the desert heat. Jenkins' men could be. Adam checked his revolver, or could be nothing. Either way, we keep moving. They rode faster after that, Adam frequently glancing back the way they had come. Rose found herself doing the same, scanning the horizon for signs of pursuit. The sun was low in the western sky when they crested a rise and saw the sprawling buildings of the Blackburn ranch in the distance. Rose felt a surge of relief at the familiar sight. We made it, she breathed. Adam nodded, but his expression remained vigilant. Not home yet. They had just started down the slope when the first shot rang out. Adam's horse screamed, staggering as a bullet struck its flank. More shots followed, kicking up dust around them. Ride, Adam shouted, drawing his revolver and returning fire. Rose spurred her mare forward, but couldn't bring herself to abandon Adam. She pulled up behind a large boulder, drawing her own weapon. Adam's wounded horse stumbled to its knees. He leaped clear as the animal fell, rolling behind the same boulder that sheltered Rose. I told you to ride, he growled, reloading his revolver. And I told you I wouldn't leave you, she retorted. More bullets struck the boulder, sending stone chips flying. Adam peered around the edge, then ducked back as a shot narrowly missed his head. 4 of them, he reported. They've got us pinned. Rose looked toward the ranch buildings, still a mile or more away. If we could signal the ranch somehow. Adam nodded grimly. Need to draw their fire, give you a chance to get through. Before Rose could protest, he removed his bandana and handed it to her. Tie this to your saddle horn. When you get within sight of the ranch hands, wave it. They'll know you need help." "I'm not leaving you," Rose insisted. "Damn it, woman." Adam's eyes blazed. "This is our only chance. Your father's men will come if they see the signal." Rose knew he was right, but the thought of leaving him to face 4 gunmen alone was unbearable. "You'll be killed." Adam's expression softened slightly. "I don't plan on dying today." He reached out, his calloused fingers gently touching her cheek. "Go, please." The touch of his hand, the quiet intensity of his words made Rose's resistance crumble. She nodded reluctantly. "I'll create a distraction," Adam said. "When I do, ride hard and don't look back." Rose tied the bandana to her saddle horn, then turned to Adam. Words seemed inadequate for what she wanted to say. "Ready?" he asked. She nodded, gathering her reins. Adam checked his revolver one last time, then looked at her with an intensity that took her breath away. "Rose," he said softly, "if I don't make it, you will," she interrupted fiercely. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Then he leaned forward and kissed her, a brief, hard press of his mouth against hers that sent lightning through her veins. Before she could react, he was moving, firing rapidly around the edge of the boulder. "Now!" he shouted. Rose spurred her mare into a gallop, heading straight for the ranch. Bullets whined past her, but she didn't slow or look back. The sound of gunfire continued behind her. Adam, keeping the outlaws occupied. The mare's hooves thundered across the open ground. Rose leaned low over the saddle, urging the animal to greater speed. As she neared the ranch, she began waving the red bandana, shouting for help. Ranch hands appeared, alerted by the gunfire. They grabbed rifles and mounted up as Rose explained the situation. Within minutes, a dozen armed men were galloping back with her toward the site of the ambush. As they approached, Rose's heart clenched with fear. The gunfire had stopped. Had they killed Adam? Or had he somehow overcome 4 armed men? The answer came as they crested the rise. 3 bodies lay scattered on the ground. The 4th outlaw was kneeling, hands raised in surrender as Adam stood over him, revolver aimed at the man's head. Blood soaked Adam's shirt once more, evidence that his wound had reopened in the fight. But he was alive. Relief flooded through Rose, so intense she felt light-headed. The ranch hands quickly secured the surviving outlaw. Rose dismounted and ran to Adam's side just as his legs seemed to give way. She caught him, supporting his weight as he sagged against her. "You're hurt," she said, seeing fresh blood on his shirt. "Told you I didn't plan on dying today," he replied, his voice weak but with a hint of humor. "Let's get him back to the ranch," ordered the foreman, helping Rose get Adam onto a horse. The ride back was tense, with Adam barely staying conscious. Rose rode beside him, one hand on his arm to steady him in the saddle. At the ranch, they were met by Henry Blackburn himself, a tall, imposing man with iron-gray hair and the same determined chin as his daughter. "Rose," he exclaimed, helping her dismount. "Thank God you're safe." "Because of Adam," she said, turning to help the ranch hands ease her wounded rescuer from his horse. "He needs a doctor immediately." Henry Blackburn took one look at Adam's pale face and blood-soaked shirt and barked orders for the doctor to be fetched from town. Adam was carried into the main house and laid on a bed in one of the guest rooms. Rose refused to leave his side as the ranch housekeeper cleaned and dressed his wounds. He had indeed reopened the bullet wound in his side and had also taken a graze to his arm during the final gunfight. "Foolish man," Rose murmured as she bathed his fevered brow. "Brave, stubborn, foolish man." Her father entered the room, his face grave. "Doctor's on his way. How is he?" "Fever's rising," Rose replied, not taking her eyes from Adam's face. "He's lost so much blood." Henry Blackburn studied his daughter's expression, noting the tenderness with which she tended the wounded man. "He means something to you." It wasn't a question. Rose looked up at her father, seeing understanding in his eyes. "He saved my life multiple times, took a bullet for me." "Sounds like Adam," Henry said with a faint smile. "Always was one to put others before himself." Rose wanted to ask more about her father's history with Adam, but at that moment the wounded man stirred, his eyes flickering open. "Rose." His voice was weak, barely audible. "I'm here," she said, taking his hand. "We're safe. We made it to the ranch." Adam's eyes focused on Henry Blackburn. "Sir, got her back like I promised." "At considerable cost to yourself," Henry replied. "Rest now, son. You've done enough." Adam's eyes closed again, his breathing shallow but steady. Rose continued to bathe his forehead, willing his fever to break. The doctor arrived an hour later, a gruff, competent man who examined Adam thoroughly, before pronouncing that while the wounds were serious, they weren't likely fatal if infection could be prevented. "Keep him quiet," the doctor instructed Rose. "Change the bandages regularly. Get broth and water into him when he's conscious." Rose nodded, already determined that Adam would receive the best care possible. As the doctor packed up his bag, he gave her an appraising look. "You did good work on the trail," he said, examining her field dressings. "Probably kept him alive." The words brought a lump to Rose's throat. The thought of Adam dying was unbearable. Somehow, in the space of a few days, this quiet, dangerous man had become essential to her. Days passed. Adam's fever rose and fell as his body fought infection. Rose rarely left his side, sleeping in a chair beside his bed, waking at his slightest movement to offer water or adjust his blankets. Her father watched with concerned eyes but said little. He seemed to understand that something profound had happened between his daughter and the wounded man, something that went beyond rescuer and rescued. On the fourth night, Rose dozed in her chair, exhausted from her vigil. She woke to the touch of a hand on hers. Adam was awake, his gray eyes clear for the first time in days. The fever had broken. "You're still here," he said softly. Rose smiled, blinking back tears of relief. "Where else would I be? Thought I might have dreamed you." His voice was weak but steady. "No dream." Rose squeezed his hand. "How do you feel?" "Like I've been trampled by a herd of longhorns." A faint smile touched his lips, but alive. "The doctor says you'll recover fully with time and rest." Adam's expression grew serious. "Rose, what happened out there?" "You saved my life," she said simply. "Not just that." His eyes held hers. "Before the last fight, when I kissed you." Rose felt warmth rise in her cheeks. "I remember. I shouldn't have done that, took advantage of the situation." "Is that what you think?" Rose leaned closer. "That it was a mistake?" Adam's gaze didn't waver. "Only if you think it was." "I don't." The words came easily, naturally. "I don't think it was a mistake at all." Something flickered in Adam's eyes, hope perhaps, or something warmer. He started to speak, then winced as pain shot through his side. "Rest," Rose insisted, adjusting his pillows. "We have time to talk later." Adam nodded, his eyelids already growing heavy. "Don't go," he murmured as sleep claimed him. "I won't," Rose promised, settling back in her chair. "I'm right here." Recovery was slow but steady. Each day Adam grew stronger. He progressed from broth to solid food, from lying flat to sitting up, and finally to taking short walks around the room, leaning on Rose's arm. During those days of convalescence, they talked as they never had on the trail. Adam told her of his childhood in Missouri, of losing his family farm during the war, of drifting west in search of a new beginning. Rose spoke of her years at school in Boston, of her love for the ranch where she'd grown up, of her dreams for the future. Henry Blackburn visited daily, bringing news of the ranch and updates on the surviving outlaw, who was now in the custody of the territorial marshal. The other members of Jenkins' gang had scattered after their leaders' deaths. One evening, as Adam sat by the window watching the sunset paint the desert in shades of gold and crimson, Henry Blackburn joined him. "Doc says you're healing well," he observed. Adam nodded. "Thanks to good care." Henry's gaze shifted to his daughter, who was arranging wildflowers in a vase across the room. "Rose has hardly left your side." Adam's expression softened as he looked at Rose. "I know." "What are your plans, Adam?" Henry asked quietly, "once you're fully recovered?" The question hung in the air between them. Adam turned back to the window, his profile strong against the sunset light. "Hadn't thought that far, sir," he replied finally. "Been taking it one day at a time." Henry studied the younger man thoughtfully. "The foreman's position is open." Man I had moved on to start his own spread. Adam looked surprised. "You're offering me a job, more than that." Henry leaned closer, speaking so Rose couldn't overhear. "I'm offering you a chance. I see how my daughter looks at you, and how you look at her." Adam's jaw tightened. "She deserves better than a drifter with nothing to his name." "That's for her to decide, don't you think?" Henry stood, clapping a hand on Adam's shoulder. "Think about it. The job's yours if you want it." After Henry left, Rose joined Adam at the window. "What was that about?" "Your father offered me the foreman's position." Rose's face lit up. "That's wonderful. Will you take it?" Adam looked at her, taking in her bright eyes and hopeful expression. "Would you want me to stay?" "Yes," she said simply, honestly. "I would." "Why?" The question was direct, his gaze intense. Rose met his eyes steadily. "Because in those days on the trail I saw who you really are, Adam Lawson, a man of honor, a man who would risk everything to keep his word." She took a deep breath. "A man I've come to care for, deeply." Adam stood, wincing slightly at the movement. He took her hands in his. "I'm not a wealthy man, Rose, don't have much to offer." "I don't care about wealth." Rose stepped closer. "I care about you." "Your father seems to think you might," Adam said, a faint smile touching his lips. "My father is a very perceptive man." Rose's heart was hammering in her chest. "He knows what I want." "And what is that?" Adam's voice was low, his eyes never leaving hers. "You," Rose whispered. "Just you." The space between them vanished as Adam drew her into his arms. This kiss was different from their first, not desperate and fleeting, but slow and tender, full of promise. When they finally parted, Adam rested his forehead against hers. "I thought about you every day in those silver mines. Never thought I'd have a chance with Henry Blackburn's daughter." "You have more than a chance," Rose said, her hands framing his face. "If you want it." Adam's answer was another kiss, deeper this time, his arms tightening around her as though he never intended to let go. 2 months later, Rose stood before the mirror in her bedroom, adjusting the simple white dress she had chosen for the occasion. The ranch was buzzing with activity as guests arrived for the wedding, neighbors from miles around, eager to witness the union of Rose Blackburn and Adam Lawson. Her father knocked and entered, resplendent in his Sunday best. "Ready, daughter?" Rose smiled, taking his arm. "More than ready." Outside, the ranch had been transformed. Lanterns hung from trees, tables were laden with food, and flowers adorned every surface. At the center of it all stood Adam, tall and handsome in a new suit, his gray eyes finding Rose the moment she appeared. The ceremony was simple but heartfelt. As they exchanged vows beneath the vast western sky, Rose felt a sense of rightness that transcended words. This was where she belonged with this man in this wild, beautiful land. The celebration lasted well into the night, with music and dancing under the stars. As the festivities continued around them, Adam led Rose away from the crowd, toward a quiet spot beneath a cottonwood tree. "Happy?" he asked, his arms encircling her waist. "Completely," Rose replied, leaning into his embrace. "Though I'm still waiting for my wedding gift." Adam smiled, a rare, full smile that transformed his face. "Your father gave me the north section of the ranch as a wedding present. Said every foreman needs his own land to build on." Rose's eyes widened. "He didn't tell me. Wanted it to be a surprise." Adam took her hands in his. "I've already started building. It's not much yet, just the foundation for a house, but it will be ours." Tears of joy welled in Rose's eyes. "Our home. Our future," Adam agreed, drawing her close again. "A future I never thought I'd have until you came into my life." As they stood together beneath the cottonwood, the stars bright overhead and the sounds of celebration drifting on the night air, Rose reflected on the strange twist of fate that had brought them together. A kidnapping, a ransom, a desperate rescue, all leading to this moment of perfect happiness. "What are you thinking?" Adam asked, noting her contemplative expression. Rose smiled up at her husband. "That sometimes the worst moments in our lives can lead to the best." Adam nodded, understanding in his eyes. "I took a bullet for you. You gave me a reason to live." "A fair trade," Rose whispered as his lips found hers once more. In the years that followed, the Lawson Ranch flourished alongside the main Blackburn holdings. Adam proved to be as skilled at ranching as he had been at everything else he set his mind to. Their home grew from a simple cabin to a comfortable house filled with laughter and love. Children came first, a son with his father's gray eyes and quiet demeanor, then twin daughters who inherited their mother's spirit and determination. The legend of how their parents met became a favorite bedtime story, though Adam and Rose carefully edited the more violent details for younger ears. On their 10th anniversary, Adam took Rose back to the line shack where they had spent their first night after her rescue. He had maintained it over the years, keeping it as a shelter for cowhands working the distant range. "Remember this place?" he asked as they dismounted. Rose nodded, looking around with a smile. "Our first haven." Inside, Adam had prepared a surprise, a special dinner, a bottle of fine wine and wildflowers arranged on the rough-hewn table. 10 years, he said, raising his glass to hers. "Sometimes I still can't believe you chose me." Rose touched his face gently, tracing the lines that time and sun had etched around his eyes. "Best decision I ever made." Later, as they lay together on blankets spread before the fire, Rose rested her head on Adam's chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "You know," she said thoughtfully, "if not for Jenkins and his men, we might never have met." Adam's arm tightened around her. "I'd have found you somehow. Some things are meant to be." Rose smiled, believing him. In this vast, untamed land where life could change in an instant, they had found each other against all odds. A kidnapping meant to end in tragedy had instead been the beginning of something beautiful and enduring. Outside, the desert night was alive with stars, the same stars that had watched over them on their desperate journey a decade before. Inside the small cabin, wrapped in each other's arms, Adam and Rose Lawson were home, their past redeemed by love, their future as boundless as the western sky.